Hello folks, welcome back. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. A consequential day for South Africa's government of national unity. Or is it? News breaking today out of South Africa that the Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry, Andrew Whitfield, a member of the Democratic Alliance, the second largest party in this coalition, was sacked by President Ramaphosa ostensibly for insubordination. Now the insubordination apparently is tied to a recent visit by the Shadow Minister, Emma Powell, and others from the Democratic Alliance to the States. And that occurred, well, some time ago, a couple months ago. But apparently that's excuse for firing him. At least that's what Ramaphosa says. But many of us are questioning if it has a lot more to do with the fact that this deputy minister has been asking hard questions in his ministry, asking questions about corruption related to the lotto. And funny that the deputy president's name, Paul Mashatile, and his family have now appeared in that conversation. So what's it really about? Is it really about insubordination, or is it about the uncomfortable questions that a minister who isn't corrupt is asking, a deputy minister? Well, much remains to be seen. But in this crucible, John Steenhuisen, leader of the Democratic Alliance, was brutally honest in Parliament, talking about other issues today, and talked about the hypocrisy of President Ramaphosa in sacking Deputy Minister Whitfield.
Around the firing yesterday of the DA Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield by the President. And I think if we start to dig a little bit deeper into why Deputy Minister Andrew Whitfield was really fired, one will see it was because he was doing his job. He was asking uncomfortable questions about the lottery tender award by the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition.
And he issued a statement and said some of the following. Yesterday, President Ramaphosa informed me that he intended to remove the DA's Andrew Whitfield as Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry, and Competition. Like all DA ministers and deputy ministers, Andrew Whitfield was succeeding in his job. I don't know if that's true, but we have no indication it's not true, so I'll take Steenhuisen's word for that. Now, this is what he says, and this falls in line with my supposition and my analysis and what many others are now starting to say. He had opposed an attempt to make suspect appointments. He was standing in the way of looting that will follow from the transformation fund. That's that black tax that they come up with. And all of this in a department mired in corruption allegations involving the tender for the National Lottery, which of course now we hear Paul Mashatile's name being mentioned, tied to that. John Steenhuisen went on to say that given this flagrant double standard, one is left with no choice but to conclude that hardworking DA members of the executive are now being fired for fighting corruption, not for committing corruption. Now, isn't that ironic? If Steenhuisen is correct, there got ministers who are being fired for exposing corruption, but not those actually committing corruption. And I tend to agree with that assessment. For being good at their jobs rather than being incompetent. So this is where things get a little crazy here now. The Democratic Alliance is putting a marker down, laying a line in the sand, making a demand. They've issued an ultimatum to President Ramaphosa. Given the lack of influence the DA has had with President Ramaphosa, thus far, not stopping the Bella bill, not stopping expropriation of that compensation, not stopping the 3% black tax, not stopping NHI. They've accomplished nothing in stopping any of the issues that were, line in the sand issues for them in the past. Given that, it seems odd that the DA would issue an ultimatum. What is the end state here? The DA, therefore, call on the president to fire Simelane, Nkabane, Mahalobo, and other ANC ministers and deputy ministers implicated in corruption within the next 48 hours. But Ramaphosa is going to say that he didn't fire Whitfield for corruption. He fired him for insubordination because Whitfield went to America without his permission. Legitimate? Maybe, but that gives Ramaphosa an out. Steenhuisen says, if they fail to do so, the ANC will inflict grave consequences on South Africa. Make no mistake about it, what happens next is entirely on the ANC and President Ramaphosa. They did not have to do this. They triggered all of the events that follow. Okay? Steenhuisen, not exactly in a position of power here as one of Ramaphosa's cabinet members, is saying, should the ANC fail to meet our ultimatum, all bets are off and the consequences will be theirs to bear. Now, with that statement, John Steenhuisen has staked his entire political future. All bets are off. What does that mean? Will the DA take formal action against the ANC? Will the DA leave the GNU? At this time, on Saturday, the 28th of June, we'll see what happens. I suspect nothing substantive will come of this. The DA is not going to leave the GNU over the firing of Andrew Whitfield. In fact, I think the DA wouldn't even leave the GNU over the firing of John Steenhuisen, but that remains to be seen. The bottom line here is that this is a toothless ultimatum in my view, and I don't think anything's going to come of it. So we'll see. But I think Steenhuisen has risked his entire political career on making an ultimatum that it seems highly unlikely that Ramaphosa would even listen to, let alone consider following. The ANC is not going to fire their corruption accused and their corrupt members of parliament. Dr. William Kesey is all but guilty of corruption, according to the Hawks. The Special Investigative Unit found him guilty, although they weren't trying him. They found the evidence, the prima facie evidence, that he committed crimes of the Digital Vibes scandal. And he sits in Parliament, still a member, drawing a couple million rand a year salary, when he should be charged with crimes. If they keep William Kesey there, they're not going to fire these guys. Don't delude yourselves, folks. It seems highly improbable, unlikely, that the ANC is going to take action against their ministers. That's who the ANC is. They can't fire the corrupt ministers. When they start, it'd be a long time before they finish. What say you, South Africa? What say you, world? Cheers.